Perfect. So yes, welcome, Katie, on the podcast. So if you wouldn't mind just introducing yourself and sort of what you do and who you work for, that would be most appreciated, please.
Yeah, so I'm Katie Woodward. I work for a company called Corrboard in Scunthorpe. I'm the head of operations, fairly new role. I've been in it just a year, so I've managed to survive the first year. And we essentially make a corrugated sheet board and a product called single face as well. So we make the first sort of line in the packaging business, really, for cardboard.
Perfect, great. So I'd like to kick off the podcast, exact same question. What does it mean to you to be a leader? What do you say?
It's a really hard one for me. And I realise that obviously the people we've had on your podcast before have been a bit more experienced leaders, but I've only really transitioned from a manager to a leader, or attempting to in the last year. So it's quite a hard one for me because I haven't had any official training yet. I'm just starting that. But I think for me, fundamentally, it's about making the right decisions and standing by them, because I've seen so many people in the past make a decision, even if it's the wrong one, and then just bulldoze through it. And if you make a decision, at least say, right, I've made a decision, I'm going to explore it for now. If it's not the right one, make another decision to correct it. So it's not that the decision is critical, it's making the right decisions along the way that are critical. So showing people that if you do something and it doesn't quite turn out right, just do something else. Like, it's not essentially a huge failure. It's a journey that all of us go on. Nobody becomes a perfect leader overnight. Nobody's a perfect manager overnight. But doing something is the most important thing, I think.
Yeah, I like that, because I think there's difference, isn't there? Because there's people who just make a decision and then just keep bulldozing it, even if it's not working. The stubbornness prevails and they don't want to let his face go, it just doesn't work. But the difference there is it's the awareness that this perhaps didn't work. This is now what we're doing based on the facts I've got now.
I think learning from that decision is one of the most powerful things, because not only do you learn professionally, but you also learn personally as well, because I don't care what anybody says, your personal side of you and your personal life always comes into your professional side. You are like, I was the old school teacher when I first went into sort of this industry, is like, you have a work face and a game face, or you have like a personal face and a game face, two faces basically. And if I've had one bad piece of advice, or like what a bad leader is that you actually have one face. You have one face that you bring to work. You can't change your face. You don't take it off. Well, apart from makeup for me, you don't take it off on a night time and then put on a different one. So I think that's really important, like people's personalities to come through, and your own personal experiences. They do shape your decision-making skills. And I think to avoid and ignore that part of you is a bit of a fatal error.
Yeah, I think you're always learning. Like, it's weird. I always consider myself a really new manager, even though I've probably managed for maybe 8-9 years. But it's bizarre, and I think it's probably because, like you say, you're always learning. You're always making mistakes. You're always improving. But I think because they got mentality, I think you continue to think you're never the finished article, because you never are the finished article.
Yeah, so, 100%.
But I think whatever happens, like you say, people look at your leader to lead. And they look at you. I mean, COVID's a good example of needing to have answers to questions and no one knew. But as long as you had some form of a decision or answer and either stuck with it or tweaked it, then that was enough to make people feel comfortable.
That has been the only difference. I was thinking about this, obviously, because I knew we were going to have a chit chat. And I was thinking about this because the only transition, apart from me learning some extra acronyms and having to deal with a few more difficult decisions and conversations, between being a manager and a leader, is that people are looking to me for the decisions. So it's just, for me, it's fundamentally the decisions. And I think when I'd looked at a difference between a manager and leader before, I thought it was this big, amazing like leap and jump, and I was so scared of it. And then I thought, actually, it's not. It's actually, you're empowered to be a leader because of the position you put yourself in and the company puts yourself in. It's just the decisions you make that need to be right along the way.
Yeah, 100%. And empower is the right word, because then you are empowering people to be the best of their ability, which is which is the privilege, isn't it, of being a leader?
Yeah, it really is. And I've worked for different industries, different businesses, and this, for me, Corrboard has been the most empowering job I've ever had. So, I'm very, very lucky to have a manager that is incredibly empowering. And if I make the wrong decision, I'm allowed to learn from it and to rectify it, essentially. And I think I learn more from that than I would do any other way.
Yeah, I'm saying it's that right environment.
Yeah.
Well, we'll come to that, and that'll be a nice lead to it. So if we go right back, the early days, and I think I'm right in saying you started off in sort of chemist fields, part of your degree.
Yes.
So even going back before then, what sort of led you to, do you think, where you are now? Then was there any sort of early signs growing up that this is what you're going to do? Or?
Yeah, so I'm quite a practical person, probably quite pragmatic as well. I don't really take any prisoners. A bit direct, so I realised I probably shouldn't go into anything like retail or hairdressing or anything where I was completely at the mercy of people all the time, which is ironic. I will come to that.
Yeah.
So I kind of went more into the sciences. Just enjoyed the fact you could get lost in it for hours. Enjoyed the fact that you were making something as well. I really enjoyed that if you put this and this together, it made this.
Yeah.
Obviously a massive fan of Inside of the Factory, but so I was very practical, and actually it was my granddad that influenced me the most. He used to say to me, where there's muck there's money. So he told me, it is very Yorkshire, by the way, because I brought up in Yorkshire, but he basically said the muckier the job, Katie, the more money there is. So that's why that's why I kind of went into the sciences. Because obviously the careers off the back of it were a little bit different a little bit different for me. I felt like there was more opportunity. So I grew up in Doncaster, obviously not very far away from all the steelworks in Sheffield. We used to drive past them all the time. And at the point when I was growing up, very mucky. Obviously they've been improved massively, the outputs and stuff now. But so yes, it was mainly at that point money related. It was like, if I want to have a good value of life, good standard of life, good value of life, I want a career that not only just kind of, I'm interested in, but also gives me the flexibility to have, to travel, to provide for people if I needed to. So that's, to be honest, the reality of why I did it. It wasn't that I had a massive calling and anything like that. It was really practical. We were quite a practical family, really.
And that was your granddad initially that sort of prompted
my granddad. And then when I was at university, so I did chemistry, forensic science and toxicology, which is an absolute mouthful.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed it. I did really enjoy the forensic side of things more so than the chemistry.
Yep.
But when I was at university, the forensic science service disbanded. It all went private.
Yeah.
It was incredibly hard to get a job after that in that service unless you'd been in the field for quite a while and knew somebody who knew somebody. And so I just started applying for graduate schemes in the sort of, I call it the triangle between Doncaster, Hull and sort of Grimsby, Scunthorpe, the triangle. And got a graduate scheme at British Steel, and then it just sort of started from the love of manufacturing. Very much started from there. Very, very different.
Yeah, nice, good stuff. I love that. Yeah, I'm from Sheffield. You wouldn't think of my accent. I'm originally from Sheffield, so I grew up in that world. Again, my mum's side was all British Steel, and it's right, isn't it? You kind of grew up with those influences. It's a bit like we're in the northeast now, and a lot of people grow up for the Nissan influence. I think it's whatever the culture is.
Definitely is.
But I still don't think there's enough of that, because I still think, and I talk about this a lot, I still think manufacturing, if you think about young people in schools, not everyone's got a granddad or a dad or a mum or whatever to influence. I still think people don't see manufacturing engineering as a career that when they can earn a lot of money and they can do that,
it wasn't back when I went to school. And I know it's not ages and ages ago, but it's still like 20 years ago since I was in sixth form. That's sort of age, like a little less. But when I said, I'm going to go into science, it was more of girls don't do that. Girls don't. That's not what girls do. Like, do you not want to do this or that? And I'm like, well, no, I'm going to get the grades to be able to do this. So I'm going to go do this. So I don't think back then the career options were very good.
Yeah.
There was still a massive gender imbalance when it came to certain subjects. Now it's so much better. Gosh, it's so much better now. Like, you know, I started an MBA
Yeah, saw that.
on
Nice.
Friday.
Yeah.
Yeah, so and then we had a session there on careers and stuff, and I said this is so refreshing to hear,
Yeah.
you know, and the dynamic in the room as well as the people on the course was 50-50, and it's so
Nice.
refreshing for me compared to when I first thought, oh, I'll go into science.
Yeah.
But the one thing about me, and it is an Achilles heel and possibly a benefit as well, is if somebody tells me I can't do something, I will
You do it.
literally, at all costs, through
Yeah.
blood, sweat, and tears, prove them wrong. It is a flaw. I
Yep.
realize this is a stubborn flaw, but it's also served me very well, to be honest, over my career. So as I've got older, I've got a little bit more sensitive to what is actually acceptable to like
Yep.
go for. But yeah, I will just go the other way. Someone
Which
says
is,
no, you can't do that. I will
which is,
just go the other way.
and that's probably why going back when they said you can't do it, there's probably that,
Yeah.
which is so
Yeah.
interesting because the bulk of people, probably 99% of, like you say, of girls who were told that this isn't a career girls into, would have gone, okay, then what should I
Yeah.
do? And then we never thought about it again. And they haven't had that mentality, and that's exactly
Yeah.
why for years and years it was underrepresented and still is. But so it's one of those, isn't it? 'Cause I imagine you were quite different to your friends group, I guess, growing up at the time.
Yes. Yeah. Well, yeah. My best friend's a man, a male. So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. So it was quite accepted. I don't think anybody batted an eyelid, to be honest, Matt. They were just like, okay, like she's
Yeah.
off to do chemistry. Like I
Uh-huh.
was a bit of a nerd back then. I still love Lord of the Rings. I'm not even going to deny it. So you know, just, I don't think anybody really batted an eyelid. I think it was
Yeah.
just that's what she's going to do. I think
Brilliant.
because I was quite headstrong.
Yeah, good. Yeah.
Like I say, when people said, "Oh no, you can't do that," I'm like, "You just watch me. You
Watch
just
me. Yeah.
watch me."
Look where
Like
we
when
are
I
now.
do this,
Yeah.
yeah. So
When
not the
you
best quality, but sometimes handy.
when you said about being a kid, about what was it wanting to make things, it took me back to literally being a kid.
Yeah.
I'm saying this when I used to find like some receptacle of some sort, so just used to put mixing things in toothpaste,
Yeah. Oh
olive
yeah.
oil,
Mud pies.
whatever, anything to go.
If I could
Yeah,
get
yeah,
hold of the Connects my brother had, I was like, yeah, I'll have this.
there
Get
it
off
is.
that. You're making a mess of it. I'll do it. Like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
100%.
Where do you think that mentality comes from for you? Obviously, you got influence from your granddad there on that side to it, but that that obsession, I guess, to want to do the opposite what someone says you can do. Where's that come from? Is that a family trait or something you've
I
always
think it
been?
is really. Yeah. I think like my grandparents were incredibly strong. They always just say, you can do whatever you want to do. Don't let anybody tell you otherwise. And I'm thinking, did they get this from a book or did they genuinely believe it? Because, it has formed a massive part of who I am today.
Yeah.
My parents were the same. They always said, like strive for the best, like don't settle for anything in life. So, my mum was like the first one to go to university in her family. My dad was in the services, in the police force. So like had very strong structured jobs, and they just wanted the best for the children, really. Don't, I think any parent does.
Yeah.
I suppose, they don't always understand what I do. But they know that what I do makes me happy, and and allows me some freedoms to do what I would like to do in my own personal life and stuff. So that's what they say. As long as you're happy, doesn't matter to them what you do. But I think sometimes it's inbuilt in you as well. So I think there is a huge part of nurture.
Yeah.
But I think sometimes you are just that way on. And I don't know if I did mention this, but so I was quite quiet when I was younger, and then when I was 17, I got cancer. And it was a real turning point for me because I was always underneath the surface a very confident, outgoing person, but only a small group of friends would ever see that. I was always very frightened of how the world would view me. And after I got cancer and obviously recovered, I kind of was like, sod it.
Yeah.
They're literally, many people don't get a second chance to do this. And like, I would never take photographs before, I had opinions I wouldn't share. Now I'm completely the other way. So probably annoy a few people, but I feel like, you've got to make your impact on life. Otherwise you could pass away and then never have made a stance or a difference.
Massively. So it sounds like that experience, although obviously horrific, has changed you as a person for the better and made
Yeah,
you
it
more
is.
positive,
Yeah.
I guess, as well.
And I'm very, very thankful for that, actually, in a strange way, that actually it did kind of wake me up and go, if you only share 50% of yourself with the world, you'll only get 50% back. So pack it in, sort of thing. So yeah, it was really good.
And given obviously you've had experiences like that, which obviously molded you who you are. You've had brilliant influences around you who have done so. But like you say, credit to you to take that advice, because sometimes when we're young, we do the opposite to what our parents tell us. So that's obviously something built into you to listen to them and do that.
They probably would still say I did that.
Yeah,
so
true,
if they
yeah.
ever watch this, they'll be like, we didn't tell her that.
Yeah. But imagine you've taken that now in terms of, I can see from already now from speaking to you, you'd be a very accomplished and sure manager and influential. Do you think you take those experiences now and try to sort of empower people through that method, if you like?
Yeah, I do try. Like, I'm sure other people feel like this, but sometimes when the day-to-day is so busy, it's very hard to add that reflective journey into a leadership or management. And I've been so the last couple of months I have felt this, and I'm trying to channel a different way now. So I think, and I will always bang on about this, but being reflective is one of the most powerful things. I am so self-critical about anything I say, anything I do, like, oh, I could have handled that better. And I think the minute you stop doing that, or if you don't do that, then you won't ever kind of grow as a person. I don't think you ever will. And it's got to be both personally and professionally. So, occasionally I can dwell too long on something, but I think you do have to be reflective. Otherwise, what is the point?
Absolutely. And it's awareness, isn't it? I completely agree. Yeah. Sounds a bit weird, but I talk to myself typically on the way back in the car. I talk about my day, and I find now it really helps me. I talk about things have gone well, because otherwise I tend to dwell on things that have gone wrong. And actually, when I've said to myself, actually, these 4 things have gone well, I get home in a better place. And I think you're right. I talk myself, could have done this better, could have that better, because it's difficult, isn't it? When you are, the higher you go in terms of leadership wise, the less management sometimes you have, and the more you've almost got to edit and manage yourself along the way. So it's another challenge, isn't it? It's tricky.
And I think the more impact your words can have as well. Like when you're on the lower on the chain and you say something a bit squawky, you think, oh crap, I hope no one heard that. Probably nobody did hear it.
Yeah, exactly.
The higher you get, you're like, my God, I really didn't want that to go out to that many people.
Don't quote me on that now.
Like, didn't quite mean it that way. And so you kind of have to be like, so I can't say that, and I probably should have said that in a better way. But I think that's the point. Nobody in a professional situation ever does something where you can't come back from it. And I really truly believe that. You might say a crossword one day, go and apologize.
Yes.
Like, you might do something not quite right one day, go and apologize.
Yeah.
Rectify it. Give a solution to the problem. Like, there really is that, and I think that, because that's part of empowerment and a different leadership style, because that's the other thing, everyone's got a different leadership style.
Yep.
And there are so many models and there are so many descriptions of leadership, but you are an individual. There's nobody else there's me, there's nobody else that's you, Mark. Like, so you can't really study everybody's individual leadership style. And that's like the beauty of podcast, isn't it? You take snippets of everything. And it's the same from like leaders you've had. You take a little bit of everything, try and put it in a practice, and it's very different to form your own leadership style.
Yeah, massively. I think particularly if you've been like you've organically been promoted to management. They've not looked on your CV, not met you and gone, right, you are now a leader. They've given you opportunity because of you, and that's who you are. So you change too much. That's not why they employed you in the first place.
Exactly. And I'm a doer. Know that. So I am the attention to detail, slightly OCD person. I'm not ashamed of that. But I think sometimes you do get promoted because you do.
Yeah.
And then, but the problem is when you get promoted to a certain position, you're not supposed to be doing those details.
Delegate now suddenly. Yes.
And that I found really hard. I found the delegation, because I almost felt like I was being demanding, like a diva. And I'm like, oh no, you are supposed to be doing that. So don't make me feel like a diva. Don't make me feel like
it's a control, isn't it, as well? Giving the control to do something you can do yourself.
Yeah.
Really difficult. It's only sometimes you realize people can actually do it better than you. But that's the journey, isn't it?
And I have to actively work at that. Like that is, I would say, if you said to me, like, what is the one thing that you struggle with most? Actively not being the doer.
Yeah, it's hard.
And I can't help it sometimes. Like I'm like it
Yeah.
at home. I'm like, oh yeah, I'll just do that. I'll do that. But yeah, and that again, difference between management and leadership is you've got managers who manage, and then you have to lead them.
Yes,
And it is so hard to put it into practice sometimes. There's
100%.
no perfect day, I don't think.
No, we had some we actually had some leadership training here for my managers, but also I knew it was going to help me as well because I've never really had sort of management courses of leadership, I guess.
Yeah.
And it was so helpful to have that. But one of the things that she was talking about is never answer a question with the answer, ask it with a question.
Yes.
And I'm thinking,
deflect
me.
the
You know what
question.
I mean? Like, yeah, exactly. In terms of how do this, how do you think you should do this? And
Yeah.
it is the right way to do it because obviously, ultimately, they're gonna come with an answer, and over time, they're going to start coming with questions because they know the answer. But it's so difficult when you're busy and they ask you questions, go that, and then you just know that saves it saved me 5 minutes, but actually, long term, it doesn't.
Sometimes I don't know if that's so helpful. I
Yeah.
think there should be a happy medium. Like if I answered every question with a question,
Yeah,
I'd feel a bit dodgy.
pointless.
Do you know
Yeah, as
what I
well.
mean? Like
Yeah,
I'd feel like, what am I trying to sort of irritate the person? So I kind of do it two ways. I'll go, if they ask me a question, I'll be like, I think this might be a good idea, but however, what do you think? Do you think,
yeah,
have you got any thoughts? So I'll offer something, but then take something in return. So I just think it is a real give and take. Whereas if we just, I don't know,
every time. No, I agree with you.
questions all the time
Yeah.
feels weird to me. And I know it's a key technique in leadership. I do know that, and I am actively trying to practice it myself. But I do feel like, because this is quite a small business, I think in a corporate world, go for it. It's like Cluedo every day. That in a corporate world, I've worked there. I know that you're like, right, I'm going to go bounce around 15 people before I actually get the answer to what I want. And whereas in a small business like small to medium business like Corrboard, it's a very different sort of dynamic. Yeah, completely different dynamic.
I remember I had a manager used to say exact same thing every time I asked him a question. What do you think? And I was thinking, well, I don't know. That's why I've asked you.
Just think, what's the point of this conversation?
Absolutely, yeah. But there is a happy medium for sure. But no, it's a really interesting journey, I guess. And this is why I like, we've interviewed, I guess, a real mix of people on here because you always, what I've found out is no one feels like the finished article, and I don't think we'll ever do, nor should do really, because.
And I'd love to meet somebody who actually thinks that they're finished. I'd love to meet this. I'd kind of be like, da equals narcissist in my head.
Well, exactly that, 100%. Exactly the same, because if it's almost like there's no growth there. So it's a fixed mindset if you think I am now the accomplished manager, because people change all the time. You might even now I've seen a massive difference managing people post-COVID. In terms of what people demanding for, quite right into work-life balances and want more. It's forever changing because people are changing. Dealing with grads now was very different than it was 10 years ago. Completely different. So I think if you've got that mindset to keep wanting to improve yourself, then it's so important.
I think it then cascades. So if you improve yourself, it just cascades all the way down. 100%. I hate using the word tree. But we need to I've got a better description. I'm sure inspiration will hit me one day, but it just cascades all the way down. If you feel good about yourself and are reflective about yourself, it truly goes all the way through. Because I have worked for managers who hate themselves, and that hate drips down all the way through the cracks. And
culture, isn't it?
It's awful.
Absolutely, I completely agree. And post that, I see. Obviously, you went more the sort of quality QHSE aspect. Was that something that quite organic, or was that?
I think just by accident, because like I say, I'm a doer. I really liked implementing stuff, looking at numbers. They made sense to me.
Yeah.
And I kind of got to, so I was doing all that, but then I kind of got to a point where I was like, numbers aren't enough anymore. Like I'd finished my work in like half the working week, and then I was like, what else can I do? It'd become like second nature for me. Like, I can do that. I can do that, and I was like, well, what else can I do? So I just started going out and talking to people because I didn't really have anything else to do and I felt bad. So I just started talking to people, started to understand them a little bit more. Always been interested in psychology. I did psychology at A-level, and in a personal perspective, I've always been quite interested in that side of things.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just kind of started thinking, once I'd got to know a few people, and then I started looking at the managers in the area, thinking, I could probably do a better job than you.
Yeah.
And I didn't mean it in an arrogant way.
No, just
I just
confidence.
meant
Yeah.
it in like a what on earth are you doing kind
Yeah.
of way, I've don't get me wrong, I've seen some great managers in my career so
Yeah.
far. I
Yeah.
really have, and I'm incredibly grateful for those. But I have seen some poor ones and
Yeah.
some bad ones, and poor and bad are not the same.
Yeah.
Poor managers are people that they're not doing anything bad to people,
Yeah.
they're just not doing anything,
Just competent
which
enough.
is just as painful to watch.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then you've got the bad ones that literally try and destroy people's lives.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so I just ended up looking at these people being like, I can do that.
Yeah.
And why shouldn't I do that? Like, I've done this. I can't really get any further up the ladder, up the tree than I already am now. The maneuver now is to go side move first, so then I can go up a different path. And just I think it's with age as well, because the older you get, the more people you've talked to, the more experiences you've had, and you realize the reach that like certain roles have so much reach and so much potential to make a difference in people's lives that it's quite scary times, like it's like COVID was a particular one, like when you were picking and choosing, like not particularly our company because we were absolutely mad during COVID, as you can imagine with Corrboard.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
When I was looking at my friends' experiences where people were picking and choosing who kept the job and who was on furlough and stuff like that. And it's, I've done 2 rounds of redundancies in my career, and
Horrific,
they are truly awful to do. Truly awful. I don't know if I should say this, but for the first one, I became a slight casual alcoholic for that whilst I was doing it, because I came home every night and I was just emotionally I felt emotionally broken, and it's just such a strange thing to look at somebody who's a manager and go, I could do that.
Yeah.
And to be honest, my granddad said, well, why aren't you?
Yeah.
And like, what are the reasons you can't?
I love the fact he was still pushing you on that as well.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Pushed me all the way. And he just said, why don't you?
Yeah.
I think he's probably was sick of me moaning, but like
just do it yourself.
I was pointing out a very, very valid point, that
exactly,
if I'd have reflected, I probably would have concluded myself. But yeah, so I just thought, well, yeah, I'll try it. And yeah, it's been quite the journey, and still the journey, because people are far more complicated than machinery.
Oh God, yeah.
There's no guidebook, there's no real manual for every single human out there, and it can be quite the eye-opening experience at times. I'm sure you've experienced as well, Mark, especially.
It's responsibility as well, isn't it? I think that's because management is difficult, and learning how to deal with situations just comes from experience. But I think what I didn't expect is the feeling of responsibility of all these people. That's a different sort of feeling, isn't it? It's a different sort of pressure knowing that their success isn't down to me, but obviously plays such an important role. And that's very different, I think, to any other. Operations is very different than perhaps a quality manager where it's a bit more black and white. If that makes sense.
Yeah, it is, and it's funny you should say black and white, because there is an ongoing joke about me with this, because obviously I've come from that background.
Yeah.
I still believe decisions can be black or white. So this is where I have a constant, I'm going to say chafe with my operations team, is they'll come to me with a grey problem. They'll come to me with
you'll make it black or white.
And then I will say to them, well, the answer to it is black or white, and we'll discover those opportunities. And they get really irate about it, because they're like, it's a grey problem. And I'm like, yes, I agree with you. It's grey, but you can either go one of 2 ways. You can continue down the chaos journey and make it even worse in this grey cloud you want to sort of travel in.
Yeah.
And then it will rain down on you at some point. Or you can go, stop, let's choose a different route. And so it is an ongoing sort of inner joke at Corrboard that,
that's perfect for
they
them,
are
though,
very black and white.
They'll go away. You know what I mean? You can take that to the bank. As soon as anything's grey, do you know what I mean? It's so subjective, isn't it?
Yeah. And I just think my first question is, why is it grey?
Yeah.
Like, why is it grey? Because we must have fundamentally got something wrong for it to be grey. Thus, if we go back to, obviously, with my background, root cause analysis and the 5 whys, you go back and go, well, it's grey because that's broken.
Yeah.
So they're having to temporary engineer it to be able to do this. So I'm like, well, let's just get it fixed.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I know other things are slightly, more grey when it comes to people's feelings, emotions.
There's normally a reason, isn't there? Normally
There's
a reason.
always a black and white, either a performance plan that can come out of it, or a black and white rehabilitation plan that can come out of it, or there's just a full HR procedure, that again is very black and white. The rules are there to stay within the guidelines. So yeah, I think my team have obviously had quite a lot of a struggle with this over the last year, but I think they understand now because it genuinely is.
Yeah, and I think if you can get that must help. That must help your team ultimately, because it's very difficult if you don't know how to deal with the problem. But you know how to, like you say, if there's a performance issue with someone, is there a reason? Can you look at the statistic and go, okay, this you're not doing enough of this, or is there a problem at home? Is there something with is it instability there where you can talk about? Because sometimes it's beyond the numbers, isn't it? And it's beyond performance. It's the mental health. It's anything, but it's something that's something you can hopefully try and help them with. But it's getting that root cause analysis.
It is, and I maybe part of my personality of being very nosy as well is kind of
like, isn't it? Yeah.
I'm just kind of like, what's going on? What's how are you? Like, what's going on in your life? And so I absolutely love the Dale Carnegie perspective.
Yeah, I agree.
So massive fan, advocate of this, because it's the attention to detail. And I always say this, I give the books out. I'm such a nerd with this, because I always say to people, what's the most important word to you? And so many people don't say their name.
Yeah.
And that's one of Dale Carnegie's things, is like, somebody's name is the most important thing. Can you imagine if you kept getting people have done it to me so many times over the years, but if someone calls me Tracy 15 times, I'm like, well, okay,
not listening.
I'll answer you because you're obviously getting it wrong. But and so I really, really enjoy the Dale Carnegie styles. Absolutely love that side of management, and that's not practiced enough, I don't think. The small details of people's lives. Like, we have a thing here at Corrboard, and we introduced it in the last year. If someone has a baby, we send some flowers.
They make a difference. Little things, don't they?
Somebody gets married, we send some flowers. Someone, we make compassionate decisions. Which, and that's where I wanted to get to. I wanted to get to a level where I could make the right decisions, like from a personal level as well.
That's a people-centric business to become.
Yeah. And I was thinking, if I can't sleep at night, something's wrong. 100% something wrong. And then that's on me. That I need to rectify. Bear in mind, over the last year, I haven't had one of those nights, so I feel pretty good about that. I've had nights where I've been concerned about people, if something's happened, and it's not necessarily off my decision, but I feel for them. It's that's completely different. I think as soon as you lose your empathy towards people, and it's so easy to do, isn't it, when you're dealing with 15 different problems and then another problem comes. And as a leader, you're a tank, aren't you? And you just get fuller. So it's just about making sure that, yes, your equipment does run, but it don't run without your people.
100%. And I think you've got that mentality, like you say, where whatever the problem is, you find a solution, you find the answer. I think it will help you sleep at night, because otherwise you think about the problems.
And it's also about being direct with people. Sometimes everybody's thinking it, but nobody says it. And I'm like, somebody just, so I always say it, because the problem with manufacturing, I'm sure you understand this as well, is the rumor mill and the gossip is worse than any sector I've ever worked in. Top
floors are a special place to be. Exactly that.
So they're probably hearing it like third, fourth, fifth hand. So it's just better to be like, this is the situation. This is what's going on. Let's deal with it.
People know the stand.
And do you know what? I think more people should accept that. More people should accept having very honest conversations, because you can waste so much time and energy not having honest conversations. And honest conversations don't need to be difficult. And I really, I don't know what the training with this senior leadership apprenticeship or MBA is going to be like, but I would hope that in leadership courses going forward and management courses, that difficult conversations are practiced. Because when I had my management training and stuff like that, I had training on how to say no to people,
Yeah,
like,
yeah, exactly that.
and I was sat there thinking, I'm not sure I agree with this, but I'm
Uh-huh.
going to go through the course anyway, because can you imagine if someone just kept saying no to you and you'd be
Yeah.
like,
I think and that goes back to what we're saying. Things have just changed. People have changed, and you've got to
yeah,
change your tack to go with it. Completely agree. Did,
yeah,
obviously, you mentioned right from the early days in terms of the gender side and how different that was. Have you, it's still a very underrepresented market, manufacturing, engineering.
hmm
Have you found that challenging at all, particularly on the leadership side? Because it's still the
yeah.
percentage is still so small in terms of senior leaders.
I'd be lying if I said no. I
Mhm.
have found it incredibly challenging,
Yeah,
but it's one of those topics where I'm not a feminist.
yeah,
I am a promoter of all people, like
people. Yeah,
everybody. I want anybody who wants a seat at that table to either earn it and deserve it,
yep,
or be given it because they need to be given an opportunity.
yep.
So I like in my early days, I used to get very angry about the sort of like dynamics. I won't lie about it. I was very vocal about it. But I again reflected on what kind of manager and leader do I want to what message do I really want to put out there in the world? Like, do I want to put out that I'm a feminist, or do I want to put out there that I'm an advocate that if you put the hard work in, you get the rewards?
Irrespective of anything else.
Yeah,
Yeah,
work hard, play hard, make a difference. And it doesn't matter how old you are, what sex you are, what orientation you are, as long as you are good at the job and you
yep,
do a good job, then you deserve that seat.
yeah.
And yeah, I did really struggle. I watched people who I personally thought weren't doing that great a job be promoted over me.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it makes me sound very bitter. And I genuinely am not, because I'm still friends with those people now.
Well, it
Like,
happens, doesn't it?
amazing, amazing for them. But in the back of my head, I was kind of like, don't quite understand the feedback as to why I didn't get the job.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So yeah, if it's a bit rough, the steel works are a bit rough.
Yeah, yeah, of course. Massively. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
like I said to you earlier on, someone tells me I can't do something or puts a roadblock in my way, I will go and get a bigger JCB or
Yes.
bulldozer to just come and do that. And yeah, I don't know whether that came from obviously being packed quite poorly and then kind of being like sod it.
Yeah.
Um,
Mhm. Yeah.
but it just kind of made me more determined. So like the job I have now, um, my previous MD put me in the role, but he literally told everybody put me in the role to watch me fail.
Really.
And it was the most infuriating thing to hear,
Yeah.
but also the most powerful thing to hear,
Did
because I knew I could do it.
did he no if you know him, do you think he did that because right or wrongly he thought that would get the best out of you? Or do you think that's what he
No,
thought? Right,
no,
it was
he
just
was not
right,
an ideal individual.
right,
So,
okay. So it's just
um,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So and it kind of almost kind of like flared me, because I thought I'd got to a position in my career where that
Uh-huh.
wasn't a thing anymore. Like I
Yeah,
felt like I'd overcome that
yeah,
quite a lot, and I've literally been an advocate for it for God, for years, Matt. Like, I've done the STEMnet, I've done
yeah.
women in engineering and manufacturing, I've done all the talks, I've done the networking, lean in, and I generally thought I'd got to a position where I was like, yeah, I'm getting these things off the back of my own merits, and I was so excited. And then I thought, well, be damned with you. I'm going to
Yeah.
show you exactly that that isn't true, and that stereotypes shouldn't exist anymore. They shouldn't
So,
exist. I worked in Synthema before Corrboard, and I had a chap that worked with me in the laboratory, and he was, I think when I first met him, he was in his 60s.
yeah,
And he genuinely is the most amazing person I've ever worked with.
yeah,
And it was a real eye opener for me that he had so much ambition and drive still.
yeah,
And I think for me that opened up my eyes to be like, I'm not the only category that struggles.
yep, yeah,
And
absolutely.
it really kind of humbled me, because before that point I was still on a little bit of a mission about it, still a bit indignant about it. But then I realized that actually, if I really persevered with it, I could be the one that helps not just my cause, or like I said, it's not a cause, but my interests,
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
I could help all the other interests that are out there.
That's right.
So
Yeah,
yes, it was another learning curve for me, really. So Yeah, so yeah, it's
Right.
interesting what sort of spurs you on over the years. It changes.
Yeah, yeah, it
And
does.
I think that's what people shouldn't be afraid of. They should, just because you have an opinion when you're 20
Hmm.
doesn't mean that that opinion can't develop.
Yep.
You know, you don't have to be stuck in the same message of repetition.
Yeah.
It could be like, actually, that has affected the way I feel about this
Yeah.
and what I'm going to do in the future. And yeah, I think so I journal a lot
Yeah.
and I'm quite
Same.
reflective. And I just
Mhm.
think, you know, I've met some amazing people in the last 15 years,
Mhm.
and they really have sort of changed me in that way. And I know that might sound a bit woo woo and other things, but um yeah, they've opened my eyes to a lot of people have different struggles in
Yeah.
life, and especially in this industry,
Yeah.
it's a very dark age industry.
100% it is. Yeah, which is changing, but it's
It's,
still,
yeah,
it'll take a
but
long, long time to change.
yeah,
It is.
but I think certain aspects of it will still have requirements to
Yeah.
be a certain way, and I
Mhm.
think, you know, it's not, and it shouldn't be seen as an Achilles heel or something to be afraid of or ashamed of. At the end of the day, it is manufacturing.
Yeah.
And that, like I say, there are prerequisites of that.
Yeah.
You know, you are going to be doing a repetitive job.
Yeah.
You are going to be working in conditions that might not always be Google or
Yeah.
Microsoft, you know.
Yeah.
There will be manual labor in it, you know,
Yes.
and there will be shift work in it.
Yeah.
So there are things that will fundamentally not change about manufacturing,
Yep.
but I think they should be embraced.
Yeah. I agree. I
And
agree.
I think that's the honest conversations that a lot of people are not having, to be
Yeah.
like, this is actually what the box it says on the box. It is
Mhm.
exactly what it says on the box,
Yeah.
but it's the other things that can be like sort of developed and embraced that will make it better. That
Yeah.
will make it better.
And I think as manufacturing develops, as technology develops, then the
Yeah,
skills will change. I mean, obviously we've got a massive skill shortage in manufacturing,
yeah,
which has got bigger, and I think it's been highlighted even more so with COVID, with people retiring. And but this has been coming for 10 years. Do you know what I mean? This has been
yeah.
coming for 10 years at this gap. It's
And I
massive.
think I think people don't think the wages are good.
No,
And
that's the thing.
this
It's
is
the
the
awareness
other
they don't.
ironic thing as well. Like, you know,
Yeah.
when I look at, so we pay more for people to stack cardboard, we pay more than a police officer
Yeah.
gets.
Yeah. Exactly.
When I say this to people, they're like, "What?" And I'm like, "Yeah, but it's not an industry that is out there, you know, in the job centers. You know, if I went to the job center now and saw if any of our vacancies would be there, I bet they wouldn't.
Yeah. Isn't
And
it?
it frustrates me so much. So I work really closely with all the sort of recruitment agencies in Scunthorpe
Uh-huh.
purely for that reason, and all the charities purely for that reason, because I realized very early on that we weren't getting any, so I call it FaceTime, it's probably something else like in the
Yeah.
industry, but we weren't getting airtime.
Yeah.
People didn't know who we were, and they
Uh-huh.
didn't know that actually, yeah, you can go to Tesco's, but you get paid more if you come work for me.
Exactly that. It's people don't. There's no awareness piece still in terms of exactly that. The salaries that people, and I bang on about that. The salaries that people can earn in this industry, they
Yeah,
just don't know. They still see it as, like you say, it is tough.
yeah,
It's a difficult industry. Exactly that. You need to be, particularly if you start from the bottom. You know, if you don't go in educated, then it is tough, and you've got to be an air of resilience and hard working. But there's a lot of those people out there. And we placed someone last week who's on 140 grand, and he started off
my
20 years
God,
ago on the shop floor. Do you know what I mean, on the shop floor?
yeah.
And
But
it's now
that's
at
I
MD.
think
You know what
I
I
think
mean?
there's stories that should be those
100%
stories
should
should
be.
be out there more. And
Exactly
I
that.
do not want to hear another story about somebody coming out of university
Uh-huh.
going straight into a 140K job. I don't want to hear those anymore. Like
Exactly.
they bore me, to be quite
Yeah.
honest. I'm kind of like, you haven't earned,
Yeah.
you like, you know, again, my granddad always said to me, you have to earn your stripes. So
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
you know, that's why I persevered. I know obviously some people might not think I've been in the industry very long to get where I've been, but you know, I've worked long hours.
Yeah.
I've
Yeah.
got lots of overtime,
You've
you
earned
know,
your
I've worked
stripes.
weekends, I've been abroad a lot, like working, and you know, I've put my head above the parapet and asked the awkward questions and got the glares, and I've
Yeah.
been told to shut up and sit down a lot, you know. So yeah, I want to hear stories like that, really,
Yeah.
which is obviously why the podcast we won't mention again,
Yeah.
are very good, because you want to hear about experiences,
Of course you
not
do.
not not people that are given things on a silver platter.
And young people need to hear these. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
If a young person, if a 140 grand candidate, I'm not saying everyone needs to be money orientated, but people are. And if they knew that person worked his way up from the bottom and is
yeah,
now they might think, because not everyone can afford a 30 grand university debt or needs
No,
to be successful. That's the
no.
thing.
And I
Apprenticeships
think
are a great route.
100. I love apprenticeships. Like we've got two new apprentices with us at Corrboard here in the engineering team. Love apprentices. I think if I did my time again, I'd actually do an apprenticeship. I wouldn't have gone to
Yeah.
university.
Mhm.
Yeah, and because I can do my job without a degree.
Yeah, same.
Like the job I'm doing right now, I didn't need a degree. I mean, I loved it. Don't get me wrong. I had a great time. I'd be
Experience-wise.
lying if I didn't have a great time. But
Yeah.
and yeah, I'm going again. I'm going. Well,
Glutton for
slightly
punishment now,
different
yeah.
vibe this
Yeah.
time. So,
No
yeah,
halls residence this time, yeah.
yeah, none of that, thank goodness. Um, yeah, I can afford to eat as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, just I think I definitely the apprenticeship route is amazing. It's just
Absolutely.
it gives you that nice blend between studying and working that I just wish I'd had when I was younger.
Yeah, exactly that. And I still think there's still almost a concept there that if you're clever enough, you go to university, you don't get your apprenticeship, and it's so wrong because
Yeah,
because the
it
stats
would not.
now don't add up that the
It was
graduates with the
snobbery.
money.
Yeah,
It is.
it was snobbery. When I was that age, it was
Uh-huh.
like, oh no, you don't do
Good.
apprenticeships. And
Yeah.
I kind of didn't understand. And then the certain universities you didn't go to. You went to a red brick university.
Yeah.
You went to a what do you call them? Polytechnic or
Polytechnic,
whatever,
yeah.
like something
Yeah,
like
yeah.
that. So you didn't go to those universities. And I think if I had any advice to anybody, it doesn't matter. What matters is what you come out with at the end. Have you got the skills to do a job you can apply for? Like, I never look at CVs and go, well, they didn't go to a red brick university, so I won't employ, I
Uh-huh.
won't give them an interview. It's not
Nonsense. And again, we actually have clients who specify that. I'm always thinking, really now? Do you know what I mean? They tend to be towards the sort of the older end of the spectrum in terms of they've perhaps recruited for 40 years and the things have changed. But I just think it's just, I mean, I went to university and did have a great time. Yeah, amazing. Did I learn a lot? I did a TV and radio production. It did not put me into,
different
all right, fair enough.
route.
I'm doing a podcast, fair enough. But it was a great experience. I'm glad I did it. But I almost pay for the experience, if that makes sense.
Yes.
But I think if you want bang for your buck now, in regard to if you're the engineering or manufacturing side, for example, or even earn money, university isn't necessarily the way forward.
No, and there's so many free courses out there now. Like there's
Yeah.
there's loads of funding, especially if you're in different regions. So like Lincolnshire, there is classed, as a skills shortage area. So there's so many courses. I got my NEBOSH for free.
Oh, great.
Like there's so many courses out there that again, not widely publicized, but once you get into the area, you start to like all my line managers. They've gone on these leadership courses for free with the local colleges, and as a smaller business, you can't always afford to put everybody on them. You have to select few, but because of the funding, we were like, right, everybody on it. Everybody gets the same experience, gets the same skill set.
Yeah, exactly. Love that. On your LinkedIn, I noticed that you'd obviously had your own business for a couple of years, and I presume that's part of the podcast, I guess, and everything there. So
yeah, a little bit, yeah. So ironically, I don't know if we can say this because it's a little bit rude, but my podcast is called Two Birds with Bits Missing. Basically, it's me and my friend.
I'll put a link in the comments, yeah.
Yeah, me and my friend are both come through cancer.
Yeah.
And again, it's just not really something that's talked about on, I think, a normal person level.
Yeah.
So you hear the celebrities talking about they had all this they have the treatments, and this is how their life is afterwards. But do they really have to do a 9-to-5 job, commute, put the washing on, do tea, deal with children?
Yes. No helpers. Yeah.
Get phone calls about something has happened at night time and do the grocery shopping, and they don't really have to deal with actual real life. So we made a podcast to poke a little bit of fun about it, but also to be like, actually, it does affect your entire life, your entire life, but in good ways, and slightly more challenging ways. But so and then my own business again, it came from a self-learning thing, life coaching. And like you say, and you have so many people that come and sit in your office and tell you things, and I felt very unequipped to deal with some of the things they were telling me. There is a very dark side to humanity at times, and I was at that point, I felt very poorly equipped to help them, so I went and did some studying again.
Great, love that. And that'll be helping so many people. I think this sort of stuff, it just isn't talked about enough, and I really try and personally proactively talk about it to on here, I
Yeah.
guess sometimes, and to my team. And I'm a 37-year-old bloke from Sheffield, very normal bloke who journals, meditates, having cold showers. I'm not saying you must do this at 5 a.m. I'm not that sort of person.
No,
Just do what
it
works for you.
works for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jinx. Sorry about that.
It does, it is.
It's
Uh-huh.
what brings you peace. Not
Yeah.
necessarily what brings you joy.
No.
It's what brings you peace, because peace is longer lasting than joy.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think people try and look for the wrong thing, whether it be money
Yeah.
or fame or success.
Yeah. This is what it looks like. Mhm.
Yeah, this is what it looks like, and it's wrong in
Yeah.
my personal opinion.
Yeah.
Those things make life a little easier.
Yeah.
But like I say, let's do before, I'm getting married later in life because
Yeah.
I've had some less than ideal experiences, and I've been very cautious. I've been very, like I don't want to do things that will not bring me peace.
Yeah.
I don't want to be
Absolutely.
there in 30 years' time, thinking I really should not have done that.
Yeah.
So it's what brings you peace. Peace is so
Yeah.
important.
Absolutely. You've got to be yourself. What's the biggest regret people make on deathbed, that they led a life that wasn't true to themselves? It was what people, and it's so true, isn't it? I think but that's that self-reflection. I think a lot of people nowadays, it's so, I mean, I have open conversations now with particularly probably the lads in my team. That it's funny, we did appraisals last week, and normally it's like, okay, how many CVs you're sending? And this one, it was much more about, helping them on journaling and meditating and stuff that I never ever would have thought I would talk about. But I think you talk about what helps you that might help someone else. It's one of those, isn't it?
100%. Shared experiences. There's
Massively.
a lot of power in them. Shared experiences.
Do you think, in terms of, you touched on before, but obviously you've come through a massive journey now, and you seem someone who's so committed and very dedicated to what you do. What's your biggest drive now for you? Would you say, what really, when you wake up in the morning, what really drives you on now to be the best of your ability, would you say?
I think it's like we said earlier, because I still don't feel like the finished article, and and not to blow smoke up his bum, because I hope he doesn't watch this. My boss is very collected.
Yeah,
very good.
I hope he watches it. He should do.
And sometimes I feel like a scrappy chihuahua in the morning that's like got my hair like this. I think, oh my God, I've just dealt with that for 8 hours. And sometimes I feel so, I might not look it sometimes, but inside I feel like like I've got 10,
what am I doing?
Like bales of hay, I think. But then he always says to me that I have no game face, Mark. So this is a problem for me. But yeah, he always seems so like, calm, collected. And I look at him and think, I am still way off where I want to be. Yeah. And it's always been obviously on LinkedIn, you saw that I started the senior leadership apprenticeship and the MBA. And again, that's always been a dream of mine, because I think I read somewhere something like there's more CEOs called John than there are women that have got MBAs in the UK or something like that. And again, not my cause, but an interest of mine that is, again, to prove people wrong and to be like, I can do that. So I'm just not the finished article. I'm not perfect. I'll never be perfect. I really, one day would like to manage the entire factory. That's the goal. I'm only 33. I've got a lot of career years ahead of me. So I'd very much like to take that next step, whether it be 10 years time, whatever, that sort of time. But I think I'd like to equip myself now. I'd like to start. I'd like to start as I mean to go on. It's been a very busy year. We've done a lot of change, restructure, all the COVID we've lived through. And I think that's that just spurs me on, just to be like this. There is always someone better than you out there, and I don't mean that in a negative way. I mean, like, I want to be I want to be as good as that, And like I said, I've had another boss in the past, again, really, really good, calm, collected. You know that somebody deserves that job. Does that make sense? I want someone to look at me and be like, yeah, she deserves that job. She brings everything to the table that job requires. Because professional satisfaction is huge to me. I have got a personal life and stuff like that. But I haven't got kiddies. So my career is incredibly important to me. And I think, I have got the opportunity to make a difference. So if it's put in front of you, you should take it.
And that gets back to obviously what we mentioned before, is that people need to employ people who are the right people for the right position. Not okay, we can, because we've had companies in the past, and I do get it. They've normally the bigger corporate companies that say, right, we need to get women, or we need to get someone thinking, I'd rather get the right person.
The question should be is, why are you not getting women? If
Yeah,
you're so
exactly
concerned with that,
But
if you're so concerned with that as a business,
yeah,
why are you not getting women?
So
Because women will apply
yeah,
if they want to.
exactly that. Well, case in point, for that particular company, we did a bit of a analysis for them to understand that first, because why isn't it the case?
Like,
and if you look at that, they wanted people on the board, and I said, well, don't say it's the wrong way, but you've got 7-8 people on the board. They're all between 40 to 50-year-old white male British people. Do you know what I mean? So why would someone want to? Why would someone want to be the first person on that? That's your problem.
It is scary, and it's really scary. And I got really scared a couple of years ago, professionally. I thought, no, I'll just stay where I am. I'll stay in my lane. And like I said on my post, like someone said to me, like, well, if your dreams are not, if you're not scared of your dreams, then they're not big enough, lass. And I just thought, kind of true. You should a bit of apprehension to do something is really healthy.
Yes.
It means that you're gonna put 110% into this.
Yeah.
Or it's not for you, and you've still had a life experience where you go, do you know what? I tried it. It wasn't for me, so I'm going to go do this instead. Yeah. And that is just as important. Knowing what you don't want to do is just as important.
How important? Obviously, you will be a massive influence already now to people. And that will come through your podcast. You do, in terms of empowering people through going through what you've already been through. At 33, where you've got to, will be a massive influence, and you will be influenced now to female leaders, obviously, who are perhaps hindered by not getting those opportunities. Is that a motivator for you to be someone in that type of position? Would you say? Does that make you feel good?
Ironically, no, because I often feel like it's just an accident. Do you know?
Yeah.
Really, you just feel like I kind of feel like I get back to like when I was younger, that awkward fish moment where I'm like, me, right? I'm literally going to go hide in a corner now. Like, don't know, no. And then the other part of me kicks in and goes, "You fought for the seat at the table. Get sat back down." And I almost feel it feels more of a responsibility now than it did 10 years ago, because I'm now seeing younger people come into businesses, and I was once that, and now I'm in a position, like I say, don't always get it right. But I'm in a position to be like, right, you didn't get that right, but you must get it right next time, because the effects that you're going to have on those people coming into the business. Yeah. So like I said, everybody has, like I say, makes mistakes or is not perfect, but just to remember that you have that responsibility, and maybe it's a responsibility I put on myself.
Yeah.
Because like I said, obviously, there aren't a huge amount of female leaders in manufacturing. But yeah, I just kind of try and tell myself that there isn't anything about deserving a seat at the table anymore. Like, I literally make the table.
Yeah. It's up to you.
So it's that imposter syndrome. About a year ago, I was like, I've just got to kick the imposter syndrome to the curb.
Yeah.
And what do they say? Fake it till you make it.
Yeah, that's right. Then.
So I mean, sometimes it is a psychological trick 100%. That people do. And you might have the odd bad day where like that backfire.
Before you realise it, you do, don't you?
Before you know, you've got the learned behaviour where you're actually like, I made a really confident statement there, or actually people looked to me for information, or people are now doing the things that I used to do, and the positive outcomes are still there. So I think it's more of a responsibility now, Mark, and I think I feel more honoured by that responsibility now. So I will be like, right, move out the way, I'm coming forward with that thing, and it probably can sometimes come across as maybe cockiness or arrogance, but it's, if I don't do it, who is going to do it?
I completely agree. Brilliant. Well, look, I like to finish on some sort of quick fire questions-ish.
Here we go.
Quick fire-ish, to be fair. They're never a quick fire. So what's the most innovative technology or strategy you've implemented to help change your team or the business for the better? You're a doer, remember, so it should be all right.
Yeah, so we've done a lot of things really as a team. We had a lot of projects that weren't put in place properly at Corrboard sort of 18 months ago. So the team, to be honest, have really rallied round and rectified all those. It's almost like when you inherit something, it's usually got some quirks, but this needed a full overhaul. So we had some an automatic palletization line that was put in. The kit was great, but it didn't necessarily work all the way through the process. So it was kind of it kind of was jumps and starts and just knocked everything off. So we went through that section by section and put a program in for every single thing. And it did kind of correlate with my doing as well as, like I knew from a strategy point of view, if I didn't get this fixed, there was no point in doing any other project at Corrboard because it just wouldn't come off the end of the line. And we're still on with that now, 18 months later, we're still on with that, but I can see the finish line in February, Mark. So, it's again, took a lot of time, but the team really, they were dedicated. They knew that it was wrong and they were dedicated to get it right.
That's the big battle, isn't it? Making sure that they understand the end goal and why they're doing it, and bringing a team along with that. It's a big task. What are 3 things or 3 words, whatever you want to say, that make up a good leader? First 3 things that come to your mind.
Yeah, so decisions, I'm going to bang on about this. Good decision maker or sticks to it. And then I literally always say this to my team: firm but fair.
Yeah.
Like I know that's 3 words, but they're always the words I say: firm but fair. We're a business, not a charity or some sort of pub quiz team. We are a business, and it's sometimes the lines are very blurry in a small business. So yeah, firm but fair.
Nice, love that, excellent. And this is it. So you'll obviously, as a fellow fan of Stephen Bartlett, I've completely ripped his end of podcast up and stolen it. So I don't think he'll be suing me. I think he's a bit richer than me. So I asked the last guest a question for you. So this was Emma Bowen, actually, who was the general manager for IMS Heat Pumps in Sheffield. It's not too far from you. So she said, I would ask Katie, what advice would she give her younger self or anyone leaving school or university about working life?
Oh, crikey. I think not everybody will like you, and that's okay. You're not at work to make friends. You're at work to do a job and to do it the right way. You won't make enemies if you do it the right way. So not everybody will like you, and it's not personal. It's just business. That's the first thing. 2, don't let people get in your way or tell you that you can't do something. Prove them completely wrong. I love a story like that. I literally would read a book about it all day. And 3, don't let work consume you. I have been in industries and I've read books where it's fashionable to burn out, and
Badge of honor.
I completely disagree with it. I've disagreed with it my entire life. I have worked hard and I have worked long hours when I've needed to, but they're because I wanted to, not because they were expected of me. And I think that's a huge difference. There is something to be said about having, you look at so many leaders and they've got broken families, broken marriages, broken health.
The cost of it.
And you think, I say, what's the price? Like, do not let your life be the price of work. Like, they're the 3 things I would say.
Love that, excellent. And just finally, how do we improve the future? We've touched on it, but the future manufacturing. What's the one thing we need to do to improve it? What do you say now?
I think more resilience training, because like I said to you, there are certain requirements of manufacturing that won't change. But as the generations that are coming through, they're different to my generation, your generation. They want things on demand. They think things are easier to get to and easier to achieve, and they want shorter term gains. It isn't like that in business at times, and I think there is more of a gap creating. I see it. I see it firsthand here. There's a gap between what is actual reality in manufacturing and the generational thoughts of how it should be. And I literally see over the years the gap getting bigger. And I think it's all to do with resilience. there aren't many jobs apart from manufacturing where you could have careers for 30, 40 years.
Absolutely. Yeah. For the same company.
And that requires resilience and I just feel and I'm very aware of that gap. And I think it's something that I will personally start to tackle here at Corrboard in the new year with a bit more motivation, because I'm really acutely aware of it, especially with all the media having come out of COVID. There's a huge gap on it, and I think it's the next big topic for manufacturing.
Yeah, I agree. What's next for Corrboard? Obviously, like you say, they've been through such a busy time over COVID, which was all hectic, and obviously hope they come out the back end of that in terms of. But what's the next few years looking like for them then?
Stability. I think we need a good, a good couple of years of stable growth. Obviously, can't give too many secrets away, Matt, but a nice stable growth, training, development of people, experience. So just stability. We've had a lot of years now. Well, a good 3 years of instability, haven't we? As a country, we still got it now with obviously the war in Ukraine, that directly affected our business because we use starch that comes obviously from there, in those arenas. Obviously gas and energy prices, cost of living, there's so much uncertainty elsewhere that I would like to create a very stable environment for people to come to work. Yeah,
love that. Excellent. Look, this has been great. I really appreciate that, and I think so much value in this. I've really enjoyed it because it's been a real management discussion. They're all different for reasons. But
I'm a waffler. Sorry.
No, it's been great. I think the value people get, experience or not experience, I think, in terms of, for me, my takeaways because I take away something from these podcasts every time, I think, is to really back yourself.
Yes.
Really back yourself, and I think that's
no one else will.
100%, and that's what shows in terms of the right from you from obviously from early age, you've completely backed yourself, and I think people will take a lot from that. Learn from the experiences, but just give everything your all, and like you say, with that resilience.
What have you got to lose at the end of the day? And then I think that I say when I was hiding myself previously, what did I have to lose?
Yeah, exactly. Look, thank you very much.
Thank you very much for having me as well. Sorry for the waffling.
No, all good.